Hello, and many thanks for joining us again on the program People, Politics, and Power. Our aim is to keep you informed and properly briefed through thorough evaluation and analysis of issues and events that tend to determine and shape our developmental trajectory, both as individuals and as a people, from all the four corners of the world, and especially so in our country, Nigeria. I am Imonia Marere. In our last edition, we started discussions around expected developments in 2022 in Nigeria, while trying to make some projections given the nature of Nigeria's political circle. The year 2022 is the real political year, and not so much 2023, which is just for the conduct of the general elections. As expected, governance, if any, will take a back seat this year as elected office holders and those aspiring to take over or replace them will abandon their constitutional duties and responsibilities and junket around the country, seeking new political alliances and power structures. The political parties, particularly the so-called big ones, are already unsettled by the fierce power struggles within their ranks. The ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, is caught in its self-inflicted contradictions, conflicts that were foretold on this program as far back as 2015, when it won power at the center. Its inability to wield together the strange and disparate forces that metamorphosed into the APC is now haunting it and may destroy it if care is not taken. President Muhammadu Buhari hinted this much in a recent TV interview. On the other hand, the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, the main opposition party which should benefit from the APC's incoherence, is embroiled in its own confusion, even if it will not admit it. The party is busy bickering over the zoning of offices, particularly the presidency. Should it go south or should it go north? The remaining 16 registered political parties appear to exist only in name and on paper. They habitually slip into a deep limbo after each election. Now, desperate politicians and the various power cabals in the parties appear more interested in their survival than in the continued existence of the Nigerian state and the stability of its democracy. The big question, therefore, is, can Nigerian democracy navigate through the apparent undemocratic practices and the crisis in the political parties to deliver an enduring democracy in 2023 and beyond? What are those landmines to watch out for, and how can they be overcome? Join us as our guest analysts do an in-depth dive into the issues. That'll be right after this short break. All right, let's now get to meet our guest analysts, two of them who are right here with me in the studio. First, from my immediate left is Dr. Suleiman Barnabas. He's a senior lecturer at the Bayes University here in the nation's capital, Abuja, and he's a political sociologist. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're also joined by Mr. Kennedy Tifato. Mr. Tifato is a politician, but also a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much, Mr. Tifato, for joining us.
Thank
you.
So
let's begin with you, and let's begin this way. What do you consider will be the main challenges facing Nigeria and Nigerian politics in 2022?
Thank you, AIT. Thank you, Amariri. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And good afternoon, Nigerians. The major challenges, or the major challenge, I would start with one. It's not a new challenge. We have had this challenge since our existence. The challenge of leadership. I'll just call it leadership. We have had problem with the authenticity, the genuineness of our leadership in this country. We seem to be a nation of hypocrites. We mouth a lot of things that we don't believe in. We will script down things on paper. We would speak them out. It's not from our heart. The actions we take are diametrically opposed to what we say. Whether it's in politics, or in the civil service, or in the military. You see this diatribe, you get tired. Comparisons have been on for many, many years, for decades, between Nigeria and other places. We have this uncanny ability to just fail ourselves. Our major challenge, that is what we face presently. The debacle we have in the electoral system now is a failure of leadership. How can we have confusion as to how to conduct 2023 elections? Persisting. This president came to power in 2015. There have been attempts to rectify these problems since God knows when. The late President Yar'Adua attempted. He did better than his predecessor in trying to put together a committee that had the respect of Nigerians. The report till today has not been implemented. This president, who has suffered what he called the injustices in the electoral system, is now an outgoing president and has failed to correct this anomaly. It's a failure of leadership. So I think our main challenge since our independence in 1960 to date has been a failure of leadership. We thrive in sentiments. We thrive in everything that will divide us. What do we call a national vision? What is it that brings us together? Every Nigerian is, first of all, from his tribe, before he is from his local government, and then state. We are not one people, as it were. But all this would be sorted out if we had leadership that was committed to the country. That, I think, is our main challenge.
Yeah. Dr. Barnabas, there are those who would disagree with Mr. Tifatu, that leadership is a major problem. There's a school of thought that says, look, from the word go, we didn't have what he described now as a national vision, as a binding national philosophy that should, in fact, drive the leadership ethos. And that actually is the root of all our problems.
Well, I don't think that there's anybody who will disagree that leadership is a major problem, if not the problem, confronting our country. But in the context of 2022, I would like to say that the greatest challenges that we have in the year 2022 will be leadership selection process. Leadership selection process, which is also tied to the problem of leadership, because it is when you get the wrong people into positions of power, people who have no business leading their families become senators, become House of Rep members, become local government chairmen and chairpersons, become presidents. That's where you begin to have, that, problem that we have. So the leadership selection process in 2022 must be right. Be right in the context of ensuring that it has to be people with character, people with the competence, people with the compassion. I've seen leaders with, the competence who have no character. I've seen leaders with character who have no competence. That mismatch will also deliver, the kind of predicament that we have. And then I've seen people who may even have the character, may even have the competence, but when it comes to the compassion for the people, you don't have them. And in 2022, already we have posters everywhere. We have people who say that because of their age, they should be made president. And each time I see it, I begin to wonder, supported by people who claim to have the intellectual and probably the leadership profile, supporting such persons because it must have been paid. So the problem we have in 2022 is to get the right people into positions of leadership, not on the basis of tribe, not on the basis of religion, not on the basis of region, not on the basis of age, and of course, not on the basis of gender. But we must look out for the people. We know them. At least we may not know, the people that are good, but we know those that are not good.
Now, Dr. Barnabas, how do you expect a proper leadership selection process when there is an absence of a leadership recruitment process ab initio?
Exactly. See, the leadership recruitment process is actually what I refer to as the leadership selection process. I mean, selection and recruitment in that context can, well fit into each other. So the recruitment process must, be done in such a way that people get into such positions or are thrown up as candidates, irrespective of their financial, capacity, or irrespective of their, closeness to the big, the power brokers. And I've seen that in recent time, that some people have actually taken, the initiative to see to it that they go round, the wards, the local government, the states, and at all levels, to look for people that on the basis of what they have done before. Because I wonder, and that's why I am not particular about APC or PDP, because as far as I'm concerned, they are one and same thing. You have a former governors, who are, former governors who have been governors under a particular party for 8 years. When a new party comes up, they join the party and they say, we are now APC. So you see, it's not about the political party. It's about identifying people that we know, and we know them. And that's where those who, are the leadership of political parties must rise beyond just partisan or sentimental, criteria. And look at people. We know people that should not come close to power. Their antecedents, are so clear. Google their names and they come up. We know people who are fighting, EFCC. And the facts are there. Only that they take advantage of their resources and take advantage of the terribly, destroyed institutions that we have. And then they take advantage of the senior advocates of Nigeria who do not care for the country, and all they want is their money. And as much as you can, bring them up and pay them all the billions, and they become billionaires overnight, they go there and use technicalities to undermine a country. We have such people. Nigerians must rise. And that's why one of the problems we also have in 2022 will be the problem of followership. The followers must be ready to rise up against these people who have actually put them in the position of poverty, the position of, lack that they are in, and resist, using all the stolen wealth to find their way to power. We have them, some of these governors, CBN, for instance, has claimed that the Kogi State governor, right, took about 20 billion naira
No, it was not the CBN. It was the EFCC.
But CBN
that
didn't.
said that.
When the EFCC said the money was taken back to CBN, the CBN didn't disagree with that.
And they did say it is the Kogi State government, not the governor as an individual.
Oh,
so
okay.
let's make
So
that distinction.
you are separating the governor from the government now.
We need to make the distinction.
Let's assume that there's an animated, right, government, Kogi State government, no actors and all. Took 20 billion, go to Kogi State. And the facts are there. Someone at level 13 got 2,000 naira in December as salary. And here we are. We have people of conscience. Some of them religious leaders. Some of them political leaders. Some of them former ministers and former what have you. Going around saying this is the person is a youth. What criteria are you using for God's sake?
Mr. Tifato, does that not take us back to this whole concept of recruitment and selection? I want to draw a distinction between the recruitment before you select. Because in my view, recruitment will include or embody the grooming of individuals to become leaders, and from amongst whom you can now do a selection and all of that. Are we doing the right thing? Have we ever done the right thing?
No.
In terms of recruitment, in terms of grooming individuals to become leaders at every level?
We just have never gotten it right for leadership. You see, any leader worth his salt is also a mentor. That you are a father today, having been married, or if you maybe, you now have children, it's expected that you are grooming the children. You not just give birth to them, but you are nurturing them. And as they get to various levels in their lives, you bring in one counsel or the other. And when they make mistakes, you correct them. All in a bid to see them good people or even better than you ever have been in your own life. It's not happening in Nigeria. Everybody that takes a leadership position sees it as the means to an end, which is self. The end is self. That position is meant to serve himself. It's not even his generations. Because if he were conscious of his children, then he would think of a good name. It is not his generation. It is him to enjoy what he calls luxuries of life now. And when he dies, he doesn't care what follows. Our leaders, our recruitment process is entirely faulty. Like I said, if you ask for seminars anywhere in the world, Nigerians will do the best presentations. We have people that are geniuses. They will sleep in their rooms and come up with concepts that will baffle everybody in the world. But let's implement. Let's practice this thing. It's never happening. Look at our budget year in, year out. It's a statement, it's a plan, it's a policy statement that needs to be implemented. But from the president to his vice president, to the governors and their deputies, to the members in the national and state assemblies, there are no people of conscience. They do not think. Every year they go through the ritual. They will ask the heads of the ministries and predecessors to come up with their report sheets on the performance of the budget of the previous year. What has ever happened to any ministry? Who has ever been sanctioned? You never hear of people misapplying, misappropriating, mismanaging funds, being punished. You just hear of more money being sent to the same department. And it's frittered away. We have a problem of leadership, and that translates into everything else. The followership problem you're talking about. Even among followers, you need leadership. How do you galvanize followers to respond to leadership? It will take some crazy bald head somewhere in the village to tell somebody, when this man comes, don't agree. And then the others would agree with him. That's leadership in itself. We don't appreciate that everything rises and falls on leadership. And we have no commitment to this country. It is very, very unfortunate. If we can have a president, one person, sir, one person, sitting in the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, genuinely committed to Nigeria, it will not take 4 years for Nigerians to change direction because they believe in their leaders.
Now, talking of changing direction, Dr. Barnabas, one of the responsibilities and duties of political parties is this recruitment process we are talking about, the grooming of persons who can step into leadership positions at any level across the country. From what you see in our political parties today, from the individuals who run these parties and who are elected on the platform of these parties, who, like Mr. Tifato say, ought to be giving example to the followership. From what you see in these political parties today, do you see a process that will produce the kind of individuals that would give direction to this country in 2022, in 2023, and beyond?
Well, I like to be optimistic. Again, in 2022, 2023, our emphasis shouldn't be on recruitment, because recruitment is a long-term thing. Leadership recruitment.
So we should just make do with what we already have.
Yes. No.
No matter how bad
no.
it is.
That's what I'm saying. It's not more about recruitment now, because we know that the person who become president will still be from the class of people that will.
The current class of
the players.
Political class.
Exactly.
Yes.
Same thing as governors and so on and so forth. So I would like to dwell more on the selection process, where political parties will have to bring those who will represent them as candidates. Particularly that our political parties are so powerful to the extent that they can choose to just, disqualify a candidate on very flimsy excuses. So it's left for us to appeal to the conscience of the leaders. And when you talk about the leaders, political party leaders in this country, you're talking about, for the ruling party, you'll be talking about the president, and then the governors in their various states. For the PDP, you'll be talking about the governors who are, fighting for 2023 for the ticket already. I mean, they have pitched their tent against those they perceive can challenge them and all. Now the question is, should we trust them to throw up candidates on a comparative note that are competent, that have the character, that have the compassion, that have the patriotism to serve this country? I would say that we just need to appeal to their consciences. If we are determined to do so, we have fine Nigerians that can be entrusted with that responsibility to pilot the affairs of the nation at the national level, at the federal level, and then at the states. We have them. Unfortunately, those who are to bring these people, are to select these people, will always use their own sentiments on the basis of religion, on the basis of region, on the basis of all kinds of sentiments that do not matter to the Nigerian people.
They set the rules, they set the criteria, and they do the selection.
Exactly. And that's why the recruitment is very important. And I will continue to say that that's not going to play out in 2022 to 2023, because those who have the money, those who have the resources, and all over the world, not just Nigeria, those who will become president need to spend money. And those who have it currently would work in such a way as to throw up one of their own. And I'm appealing to them now that among their own, they have people that we can still trust to do better than others. They should use their best 11. The best 11 of Benin Republic will not necessarily defeat the best 11 of Brazil. Yet, they still need to present their best 11 to do better than the worst would have done. In this country, for so long, we have presented the worst people in character, the worst people in competence, the worst people when it comes to compassion to lead us. And if we repeat that process in 2022, 2023, the result will not change. And that's why we need to continue to engage them, to appeal to them. You know those who are thieves. You know people who were barely, driving 2 cars, and today they have private jets just by virtue of being in a position of power for less than 4 years. Such people should be stopped. And then EFCC must play their role honestly, honorably, so that some of these, scavengers, political thespians that do not mean well for the people are stopped. I believe personally that will continue, the young people will continue to speak, the media and so on and so forth. All stakeholders must rise up so that thieves do not emerge as local government.
I was reading somewhere recently that there is a Supreme Court judgment that actually debars the EFCC from probing and prosecuting governors even after they leave office. So how is that going to help the political system?
It won't. It will work against it, unfortunately. Even at the establishment of the EFCC, when the act was passed, I do recall that when the President Obasanjo then sent in those 2 pieces of legislation for passage, the National Assembly, after debating it, after reviewing the entire provisions and rewriting the whole thing, I remember that they had a problem with the President signing that document. They had to override his veto. Now, we are coming back to what I said. Why do we mouth things and never mean them? Why would I send a piece of legislation and then have a problem signing it? Whatever additions or subtractions or corrections have been made, so what? Nobody is an island of wisdom. If I craft a piece of legislation and I send, and the National Assembly works on it, then I get angry? Whether it's the budget or it's to establish whatever. And look at how the EFCC was used under the President Obasanjo to be impeaching. And the case of Plateau, how many people impeached Darie? The case of Bayelsa, how many people impeached Lamasia? So, even these institutions, because we keep mouthing things without ever meaning them, we use them instead negatively against our country. But back to what he said, it still goes back to that thing, character. Character.
All right, Mr. Tifatu, let me interrupt you there. Let's go on a short break, and when we return to the issue of character. And, of course, we will look at the other landmines that we think have been laid for the 2023 elections. Of course, some of which we may just step on in 2022 and could affect the trajectory of 2023. Stay with us. All right, my guests are Mr. Kennedy Tifatu, who is a public affairs analyst, and Dr. Suleiman Barnabas, a political sociologist and lecturer at Biz University. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. So, Mr. Tifatu, let's get back to you. You were pushing the angle of character, leadership character.
Leadership character. That has been the bane of our leadership development and societal development. The lack of character. We have people who are in leadership positions, but they lack the character. They may even have the competence, but they lack the character. And how does character come about? It comes about from character education. Unfortunately, that is not formal. That is from parents. That's from culture. You grow up picking up these character traits and you develop them. When before we used to sing as children, honesty is the best policy. Those were ways of inculcating some of these character traits. You would do things in primary school, we didn't have pre-primary school those days. You will be corrected by everybody on the street that is older than you. People took responsibility for the grooming of children, believing they are leaders of tomorrow.
And as I say, I mean, amongst our people, the upbringing of a child is the responsibility of the whole community.
Of the whole community. Unfortunately, it has now been made the responsibility, in some cases, not many, of only the parents, but in majority of cases, of the person himself. Because they are allowed to do whatever they want, go to wherever they want, and being sponsored to those evil places that will destroy them and destroy this country by their parents, who ordinarily should be the ones bringing them up. There is education for character. There's also education for competence or for career, which is what we see. You mentioned political parties. They have a responsibility of political education, which translates to the leadership recruitment process. But they have failed in political education. And look at what is happening with the Electoral Act. What's a booby trap? Generally, Nigerians rose up to say, let's have electronic results transmitted electronically. I mean, results transmitted electronically. That's all they said. It's not even electronic voting yet. Now the addition was, let's have more people participate in selecting. Sir, I go back to the same issue of character. How did Mr. Buhari emerge as candidate for APC in 2014? And then in 2018, how did he emerge? He was a lone candidate, but the APC insisted
on direct primaries.
On direct primaries.
That's right.
But this is the same Mr. Buhari telling you that it is too expensive and the security situation in the country will not support that.
An assumption that the security situation will remain the same for as long as Nigerian democracy.
Up to the election.
No, even before.
Exactly.
I mean, beyond 2023.
And
because laws are not made for just today. They are made for the long haul.
Yes. Let me even go from the reverse angle. What is the cost of this faulty process on Nigerians? What is the cost of this imposition of candidates by political parties on Nigeria as a country and on the lives and livelihoods of Nigerians? Can we begin to imagine what it has cost Nigeria, both in terms of human lives and properties that we have lost because of the people that masquerade as leaders, who are no leaders at all, people with no character? Can we even begin to compare the cost? Even if INEC, even though they denied it, even if INEC said over 500 billion will be required, what is 500 billion? To the integrity of our electoral process. When June 12 election 1993 is being referred to as the best in our history, what was the reason?
Option A4.
Option A4, that brought in many more Nigerians to participate. This is simply what we are asking Mr. President to do. Now, this is where the problem of leadership is. Mr. President, current president, went through that process that Nigerians are now demanding for. Secondly, he is not going to be a candidate in 2023. Where is the compassion? Where is the patriotism? Where is the commitment to a Nigeria? Who would speak for Nigeria? Why do you turn the loudspeaker for your younger ones who are governors today, who are angling to take over from you? Can't anybody see?
But his argument, Mr. Tifatu, is that, look, direct primaries will be an imposition on all the political parties who may not be able to afford it. Let's have the option of indirect primaries and consensus. So the parties can choose
first and foremost,
one of the three.
The concept of direct primaries is not alien to any political party. Not PDP, not APC, not anyone. All of them have in their documents provision for direct primaries. It's just that, like you saw under Adams of Shomole when he was party chairman, he gave the option to governors per state. You saw what happened in Imo State. First, it was direct primaries, and then Okorocha and his son-in-law didn't feel fine. They went to indirect primaries. And look at the judgment of the Supreme Court that confirmed the son-in-law. But at the time he was confirmed, he had already become a candidate for another party. You see the entire confusion. All of it was driven by self. That's the character I'm talking about. Can somebody be committed to Nigeria and look and wish that Nigeria should survive? Not an individual. Not that somebody should be governor or somebody should be president. That is not our primary problem. Until there is sufficient participation by Nigerians, we are not likely to correct. And let me just add this. He mentioned leadership selection. That is correct. Because it's too late in the day now to go back to all the, factors that will help leadership recruitment as a whole. So we have to make do with what we can do. It's a fire brigade approach. We have always done that anyway. We have had 8 years now to correct this thing. We are not doing it. So we are forced into this again by leadership failure. But even in the selection process, didn't Governor Kashim Shettima select the professor now? In 2 years, he has delivered over 526 projects, many of whom the president has gone to commission himself. He is working wonders in a place with so much insecurity. That's what he's referring to. We can make do with what we have. Amongst, the majority of the bad people around, there'll still be 1, 2, 3 people. And all we need is one person. One person that will be committed to Nigeria. Not to self, not to his region, not to his religion, not to his tribe. Just one person to be committed to Nigeria, and the rest of us will follow. It won't take 4 years.
All right, Dr. Barnabas, I'd like to bring you back to the issue of the character of the political parties that we have today. There are 18 registered political parties. The 2 big ones are the ones that we keep hearing about. And the 2 big ones are neck deep in one form of crisis or the other. As we speak today, the APC, which is the ruling party, is unable to decide when it will have its national convention to elect new leadership for the party. We're not talking about picking a candidate for 2023 yet, or candidates for 2023 yet. The PDP is not any different. There is this big trend about where the presidential candidate or candidates of the other parties of the other positions should come from, zoning or no zoning, whether it's been zoned to one region or zoned to the other region. Now, these are parties that have been steeped in very many undemocratic practices over the years. Now, can our democracy navigate through these landmines that have been laid by these political parties and come out safely and sound?
Yes, it's possible. It's possible if those who currently man those political party leadership positions, ensure that they serve the country by putting in place measures, mechanisms that will ensure that the right people come on board and that the right things are done. Now, you look at the
Isn't
APC,
that expecting too much? I mean, when we already agree that these set of political class are what you called, what was the name you called it just now? Political scavengers?
Yes, I mean, the majority of them. He just mentioned the governor of Brunei.
How much can the few of them do
exactly
in realigning these political parties to what they were set up to do?
You see, the political parties, and I continue to say it, that there is no difference between PDP and APC.
There are 16 other political parties.
I mean, those ones are just their supporters. You know, because in 2023, you will see some of them coming out, their leaders, and saying we have adopted this as our candidate in the hope that they will get a ministerial position or chairmanship of a board. It's still the same character. Now, if tomorrow APC resolves and say, let Atiku come and become their presidential candidate, you think Atiku will not leave PDP? He will leave. Or if tomorrow this government decide to say, let Wike become, you see, these politicians, they are just playing the game. That's the game they are playing. So it's not that any one of them is so committed. Look at Secondus. He just left PDP some months back. And he's bent on destroying the party with his Supreme Court case and all. Today,
did he leave? He didn't leave.
Well,
he left the leadership of the party. Or he was removed as leader of the party.
Was removed.
Yes.
Why was he removed? He was removed because of policy of 2023. So we have people whose souls have been, you know, dedicated to ensuring that they have their way. Self-interest. We agree that politics is about interest, but there's what is called an enlightened self-interest. And like we see what the governor of Borno is doing. Now, in less than 3 years, despite the condition, the crisis in Borno State, the man has established, projects commissioned by the president, whereas we have governors who are in their second term that have not commissioned anything. All they do is to go and buy vehicles for security. Any dummy can do that.
Some cannot even pay salaries.
Some can't pay salaries. And each time they tell you they pay salary, they are politicizing it, because there are some who earn 10%. They pay 10% of salaries and tell you, be careful, just hold on. So the compassion is not there. And you see, the truth of the matter is that these three aspects I've talked about, competence, character, compassion, they exist in a continuum. Hardly can you separate one from the other. And we have, and I continue to say, we have people that can do the job. We've sent them to other countries at the international level, and they perform creditably well. But when you have a system that is docile, that does not demand of their leaders to be accountable, that people who speak truth to power are either humiliated, or they go after them, or they are even co-opted into the system and give them positions. And then they begin to make sense of the failures of leadership. Now, having said that, let me also refer to what my other brother here has said about Buhari's decision not to. You see, you know what the National Assembly did? They knew very well that if they inserted that party primary, either direct primary or indirect primary,
the options,
that on the basis of that, the presidency will not approve it. I do not agree that doing direct primaries or indirect primaries is what is key to delivering electoral integrity, or the kind of quality of elections that we demand for, at the party level. I do not, because I know very well that the kind of demagoguery, you see, my PhD thesis was dedicated to the politics of selecting people who come up as candidates at the presidential in the Fourth Republic. And so I've met with leaders both from the political parties, security, and evidence of what happened. Such that even if you use the same direct primaries, it will be rigged, and we see the rigging everywhere. Mm-hmm. People come up with figures. Someone is a sole candidate, and you say, let's do direct primary. Is that not a waste of resources? You are the sole candidate, and you said, let's go and do direct primaries.
And that was what was done in 2018.
In 2018,
yes,
which was not necessary. But these governors went about churning numbers. And because they had no opposition in the real sense of party opposition that would challenge it, it went through.
And that was done to please who?
The president.
Now please Nigerians by the same method.
Well, I do not think that Nigerians
are
will be
even
pleased.
saying, let's do it that way.
Because, you see,
it's too expensive.
You see, when it came to that, even the opposition governors, PDP governors, you see, they didn't complain. because they know you are taking power from them, at least in that sense. But I do not believe that that's what we even need to have. I agree that it should be allowed that the political parties decide what they choose to do and the context of the finances at their disposal, especially that will not guarantee a free and fair primaries in our own political
But
system.
what that points to, Mr. Tifatu, is the fact that in the political parties today, the undemocratic practices there as a result of the cabals that have been formed, the cliques that have been formed, the deep pockets of certain individuals who are bent on determining for the party who should be what and who should not be anything. Either at the local government level, we know, for instance, that the governors hold sway in their states and determine who gets a ticket, even for local government councillorship, talk much less of state assembly, national assembly, and what have you. Now, so when we have that kind of situation in our hands, how is it possible to then meander through these landmines and still produce what could eventually turn out to be competent candidates, people with capacity, with people with compassion?
You see, this is where CSOs must come in. Civil society organizations are wired in such a way that they can reach the larger public, including political party members, not through the political party leadership. There has to be a sense of responsibility on Nigerians, the elite, to deliver this country from the hands of the Satanists that have it in bondage right now. Everybody must work hard. It's hard work. I used to say that if you were to list 100 names of 100 politicians, we call them, I dare say that we don't have 2 people that are genuinely politicians among 100 people in this country right now. So to even look up to that group of people to help the selection process positively will not work. Because if you see any one of them being driven by passion for anything, it's passion for his position that he wants to occupy. Over 50% of the people that are active and pushing for any change at all is to favor themselves. And they are looking to move from one position to another position. Look at how the governors hold, excuse my language, hold the National Assembly members by the balls. Every time there's an attempt to change anything, they call their attention to the next election. You know you are not returning. In Kaduna State, last time, it was public, on the campaign podium, the governor, who is still the governor now, called the senators names, insulted them in public, and made sure that the 2 people from his own political party, because the third one is from the opposition party, the 2 never came back. The person who was his special advisor political took over one of the seats. Now, when you have people like that, who decide who gets what, see the position of governors. They decide who is a councillor. As low as a councillor, they decide. Not talk of council chairman. They decide, they pick their cabinet. Then they come to the federal, they decide who becomes minister. They decide who goes to the National Assembly. They are the ones who are contesting all these amendments to the Electoral Act because they still want to have their way. So the CSOs have to come in. Mount multiple campaigns. Do political education programs for people. Party members must get to know how they can avoid these landmines. On the day of direct primaries, sir, the governor may have bought everybody, may have given money for everybody to be taken to a venue for them to do what they want. But if they are sufficiently educated, they will go to that same venue. They will use his money, but they will not pick his candidate, and there's nothing he can do about it. But it requires sufficient sensitization. And this cannot be done by political party leadership. it will not be done. Because right now, even if you're a political party leader and you call for a meeting that is not known to the leadership, they get jittery. You are likely to be sanctioned. It's like the military. You cannot do anything, even if you are at the ward level, without clearance from your seniors. This is not democracy. We just changed from a military rule to a civilian rule, not a democratic rule. That's what we're doing.
All right. Dr. Barnabas, what this tends to focus on is the fact that in 2022, where we are supposed to be having party conventions, party primaries, and what have you, all towards the realization of the 2023 elections, we do not have political parties with their houses intact. We do not have an electoral act, an electoral law that we can say this is what will guide the conduct of 2023 elections. Now, what is that likely to produce at the end of the day?
It's going to produce the Nigerian kind of leadership, if not properly, addressed. Now, the truth of the matter is that in politics generally, there's a period, using Karl Marx's concept of dialectical materialism, there's a thesis, there's an antithesis, and then there will be a synthesis. So we have problem now, but the Nigerian politician, the typical Nigerian politician, when they get to that bridge, they will cross it. Compromises will come in. A lot of monies will exchange hands. And you see candidates, because they lost election, will decamp to the other one. And you saw what happened in Osun State. Is it no, not Omishore. Yes, Omishore. So they will find a way to it. And that's why we need to continue to appeal to the consciences of the leaders, those who will determine who gets what, when, and how in this 2023. Because it will be resolved. When the time comes, they know what to do. They know that this man needs money. Akpabio has said, if the problem is money, and the person is not accepting money, give more money. He said, when more money is not solving it, more money.
So that is your underlying philosophy of the Nigerian democracy.
Unfortunately so. And until that changes, we'll continue to trust. That's why any thug believes he can become anything in this country today. Go to the National Assembly with all due respect and profile them. And among them, you see people who have killed before. People who have been thugs before. You will see people have been paraded. My own federal constituency, where I come from. Some weeks to the election, a candidate of the APC was paraded, national TV, as having been involved in
Togri.
Killings. Paraded. I saw it. It's there on the internet.
And he still went on to win the election.
He's a honorable member. So
one
of the ways to be known as a dishonorable person, no matter how dishonorable you are, show interest that you want to become anything. They call honorable, excellency. And so that's the problem we have until we continue to appeal to the leadership, the president, the governors, and all. Please give us leaders. In 2023, we know that you are the ones that will still bring the people who become presidents and governors who will succeed you, House of Rep and all. Give us those that you know in all conscience that this, and that's also what Shetima did.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. Our time is up. We must go now. Thank you for your time and indeed for your very invaluable contributions on the program today. Mr. Kennedy Tifato is a politician and a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for your time. And Dr. Suleiman Barnabas is a senior lecturer at Bayes University. He's a political sociologist. Thank you so much for joining us. And for you, our viewers back home, we thank you for investing your time with us. Join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. Bye for now.